bring that so that it's fluid and the commission has the opportunity to make any changes. So our commission is who does all of our policy establishments. Our city manager executes and administers it, and our finance department, alongside with our amazing department heads, prepare our budget, and we report out on that to make sure we keep it in compliance. The commission is also charged and responsible for adopting our millage annually, and then we work through and we have 2 budget hearings and then any subsequent amendments. So looking at this at the highest level, we have 10 funds and 2 different sets of accounting rules. I wanted to just spend a moment and kind of explain why, because sometimes it can be genuinely confusing when we're talking about accounting theory. So when we're looking at our governmental funds, that's our general fund, our capital, resiliency, building, multimodal, and fleet. And so that's what we use as a modified accrual. So we recognize our revenue when it's measured and when it becomes available, and we focus on our current financial resources. Where in our enterprise funds, we have wastewater, reclaim, stormwater, and parking that are on a full accrual basis, and that's the same basis that a private business uses. So we separate out our operating from non-operating, we budget our principal and debt payments and capital assets as an expense, and we do not budget for depreciation. So the reason why that matters is that the general fund is not supposed to be making money. It provides services and the taxes that pay for them. And the enterprise funds are supposed to cover their own costs because the people who use the service are the people who pay for it. So that distinction is exactly what drives the direction around the enterprise funds, and we'll take a deeper dive into those in a little bit. So these are the budget policies that we had previously. I won't read out all 8, but I did want to note, obviously with legal compliance, Florida requires that we have a balanced budget. And so when you're looking at a balanced budget, that is your revenues plus fund balance can't exceed expenditures. So we can't go into the negative like the federal government can. That's not legal in the state of Florida. Service level is a priority, so our essential services get funded first. Our budget growth is following CPI with benefits and insurance as an explicit exception. And we hold on to that exception, and we'll take a look at what that looks like in greater detail in our personnel slide. For our full-time equivalent headcount for employees, the commission approves the numbers of positions, and so we cannot exceed that without coming back to the city commission. We also use what's called encumbrance accounting. So our purchase orders that are open at the end of the year will get reappropriated into the following year for capital projects. So please, that's a good one to remember on this, because when we get to the capital section later, you'll see where we have either some reductions down in capital for fiscal year 26 that'll come back as an amendment to the commission, and why they increase into 2027. So looking at a reserve policy, it's really, when you look at it, it's a 3-step. So first step is we have 25%, so we maintain an unassigned fund balance equal to 1/4 of our annual general fund expenditures. In practical terms, that's about 3 months of operations, and that's a Government Finance Officers Association's best practice. The second step that we put in last year is a hurricane contingency reserve. And that is only for declared emergencies under the Florida state statutes. So after Helene and Milton, we really didn't need any convincing that we needed to save some additional 10% there to make sure the city could respond. And then the third step is that anything above those 2 reserves gets directed to capital and ranked against that commission criteria that we set earlier in this fiscal year. So that's how any one-time money becomes infrastructure instead of becoming recurring operating costs that we can't sustain. So continuing to look at our policies, I want to spend most of the time on capital. So you can read through some of our revenue policies that we have there, as well as our debt policies, but I think it's important to understand that from an accounting standpoint, a capital asset is anything that's over $5,000 or has more of a useful life longer than 1 year. And our multi-capital plan covers projects and equipment that's over $20,000 with a useful lives that run 15 to 50 years, for example, or 3 to 20 years if we're looking at some of our equipment. So the capital plan is coordinated in part with our operating budget. So when we build something, we also have to project what it costs to operate it. And so that's another piece. When we're looking at debt, we do not issue short-term debt for operations. It's prohibited by policy. And so we use revenue over self-supporting bonds or general obligation bonds instead of doing that for operating. Next slide. So when we're looking at some of our policy areas, we talked already about our fund balance and our reserves. One item that we're going to be moving towards for this budget cycle that's an addition is that when we publish our annual fiscal 27 budget, we're also going to publish a citizens budget in brief. So instead of reading our 230-page budget document, you can read a 10 to 20 page document and have a pretty good indication of what is happening here at the city. We also, when we're looking at our revenue policies, since we are moving forward with our rate fees, that'll be another area that we'll look at. And when we're looking at our capital policies, we did not make any changes this cycle. For our budget calendar, we've last year started off with a formalized annual calendar with all of our responsible parties, the different workshops, when commission meets. But what's different about this year is that we've added a budget roadshow for increased community engagement. So that's an addition. And then another piece that'll be coming back through our final budget adoption is our performance management. And so where we're looking at adding in any of our key performance indicators as that connects with our budget. So looking at our revenues and trends, we'll head into that discussion now. So when we're looking at our total all funds, we have about 85.4 million.
Sorry, would you just go back one slide?
Sure.
And I don't think you touched on what the impact means on that slide. You were saying higher, medium, lower. What is that about?
Oh, so when we're looking at what our impact or what we're tracking as staff, that's how we were kind of ranking what our impact is. And so for us, it's obviously a very high priority that we continue to have that fund balance reserve, that we are doing the transparency engagement. So it's just showing some areas there when we're looking at kind of our prioritization of these policies.
Okay.
Okay, so looking at our total revenue, 85.4 million, and we have 32.8 million in our general fund, which is about 38.3% of all of our revenue, and 29 million in our in our other funds, enterprise funds. Taking a deeper look at our general fund, so ad valorem alone, or property tax, is $15.9 million out of our $32.8 million fund. The next two lines is our county EMS at $3.9 million, and the transfers from parking at $3.6 million. For our EMS reimbursement, this isn't important because it comes from our countywide EMS millage. It's a separate protected revenue stream that we receive, and it helps us offset the cost of our emergency management services. So we've talked about this in some prior workshops, but I did want to just re-highlight and make a note that our rate has been flat for fiscal year 24, and then the commission further reduced it. This was the first reduction in 9 years. And so I wanted to note that that third bar, while we're projecting at 15.9 million, that is because of property assessment values rising, not because we've increased the millage. This is just giving a little bit more information as we're looking at what each of our major sources is heading. And so with our ad valorem property taxes, obviously that one we're tracking pretty closely, because if Amendment 3 passes, then we would be in a situation where we will be receiving less homestead taxes. When we're looking at our utility service taxes, we are, that one's declining, but it's in a cautious recovery zone, so that's one that staff is monitoring. With our franchise fee with Duke Energy, that one we have is stable, and our historical trend analysis it's tied to our energy consumption, so that's not really changing. With the countywide EMS reimbursement, that one is obviously, as I mentioned prior, it's protected, and that's an item that we work with the county to receive that funding. We are seeing some moderate growth with our state half-cent sales tax. So that's any money that we receive back in from the state for any of the sales tax. With our parking revenue, as this committee is aware, we did do the fee study and that implementation, and so we are tracking how well that's going for this fiscal year 26, and so we can forecast that into our fiscal year 27 for revenue. Wastewater, stormwater, and reclaimed. Obviously, we will be bringing that back to commission in September so that we're able to implement all of those rate changes. With the exception of stormwater, that'll happen on fiscal year 28. And then on our FEMA.
I do want to ask a question.
Yeah.
Are those rates included in this budget, the approved increase?
For wastewater
For
and reclaimed, but not stormwater.
Okay.
And so another item that we're tracking is our FEMA reimbursement. So we still have about $5.93 million outstanding for our category B, as well as any of our categories C through Z for any of the permanent work that we're waiting for closeout. So those are unknowns as to when we would receive that funding back from FEMA. Moving on, we've talked a lot about this Amendment 3 in previous meetings, so I won't spend too much time, but this will go to the voters on November 3rd and would require 60% approval. If it were to take effect for the first year at the 150,000 new increase, it would be 1.1 million, and then growing in those subsequent fiscal years. I think another piece that's important to note on here is that the potential for 100% homestead elimination would be $4.5 million for St. Pete Beach, and the ballot language does include a full elimination of all homestead taxes over the next 10 years. So I think that's an important call out. So with the help of this board and our commission, as you guys are aware, the commission directed staff to structure every enterprise fund to recover its full cost of services through our user fees and eliminate any of those property tax subsidies. And we're pleased to report that we already have our parking management plan is in progress. And so we'll work again, as I mentioned, to bring back the others. On wastewater, our future capital is now built into that rate structure, and the structure was redesigned for equity between residential and commercial customers. On stormwater, that is only currently identified projects backed by the dedicated stormwater revenue. Everything else beyond that stays in an aspirational area right now until another revenue exists. On reclaimed water, one note is that the study did not address a future design for individual property metering, so that would be an item that we would need to look at or restudy in the future. And on parking, this is our most flexible fund and has the ability to direct revenue increases towards operation or capital citywide. And the reason why all of this matters is that when we set fees below the true cost of service, that difference doesn't disappear. It ends up getting deferred to future residents in the form of aging pipes, postponed projects, and a much larger bill growing later. So grounding fees and actual costs is what the Government Finance Officers Association recommends, and it's what the Government Accounting Standards Board expects out of an enterprise fund. So moving on into our personnel cost drivers, I'll take a quick look here. So we have 4 assumptions that is driving our personnel budget. We have a 3.5% increase in our benefits, a 3.2% cost of living adjustment when we're looking at our increases this year, and we benchmark that to May of each year, looking at our local St. Petersburg, Tampa area. Workers' compensation, right now, that's a placeholder. Our company that we secure workers' compensation through gave us a 10% increase, worst case scenario, so hopefully we come in under that, as well as property insurance is another area that we have asterisked because, again, that one is marked at 10%. When we're looking at our personnel services and wages, you can see the percent change of 8.6. When we're looking at part of that increase, we had a wage reopener for our fire and EMS staff. And so that is about $700,000 of that, as well as the rest of about the $150,000 is the cost of living increase across. So at the same rate, when we increase salaries and wages, then that obviously has an impact on retirement, and those two items move together. You'll also see an asterisk there on our fiscal year 26 budget. We discovered through our, working on our 27 budget that we had an error in the system implementation, and we will be bringing back a budget adjustment to increase that, and that was about $200,000. So we'll be bringing that back in September to correct that. So when we started off this fiscal year 27 budget, our city manager said no new FTEs in fiscal year 27. And so we are not proposing any new FTEs. You can see we have 159.6 budgeted positions. 124.25 of those are in the general fund, 16 in the building fund, 17.10 in the enterprise funds, and 2.25 in the fleet fund. Your question might be, how do we have 0.25s of people? We have positions that are shared across multiple divisions. So if you think about public services, for example, our public services director would show up in our general fund and in our enterprise funds and our fleet fund, since he oversees and manages those departments. So that's where you'll see some of those little 0.5 areas. So diving into our operating budget, I won't read the whole table here, but I did want to just point out a few changes. So you can see with our city commission, that came down 17.4%. The reasoning behind that is this board had recommended that the city commission receive a raise in the fiscal year 26 budget. That did not progress, and so we've reduced back down to what they're currently making. You can see here as well on our city attorney, we did add an additional $25,000 for specialty legal. You can see in our IT and innovation team, a lot of those contracts or professional services softwares were previously in departmental budgets. An example of that is our iWork system that we use for permitting, and so we've centralized that service back into IT so that they're able to manage it. And we're able to do a cost recovery and a cost allocation to recoup some of those costs. Moving on to our other areas. So fire and EMS is up 8%, and that remains our largest operating department at $8.4 million. I already mentioned that personnel figures were up with our wage reopener. But it is somewhat offset by, we did not have an EMS capital purchase this year, so that was $700,000 in fiscal year 26 that we don't have in this area. And again, it's important to note that we do receive money from the county for offsetting our EMS team. You can see here that this is where the library had the understatement because of our system implementation, and so we'll be bringing back that adjustment for the city commission to consider. Non-departmental is down for 64%, but that is not a service reduction. It really has to do with one-time interfund transfers over to resiliency, wastewater, and capital. We're still doing a capital transfer this year, but we are not doing large transfers to wastewater this year. Looking at our $35.9 million across our 14 departments, you can see what we have here. On the left is our fire, EMS, and law enforcement and public services. All together, our largest part of our general fund spending. And the right side you can see here where we have some pretty big differences and swings. The reason for that is not new spending decisions. There's construction projects that were already in progress this year, and so you'll see where the 26 budget will be reduced down so that we're able to spend what we need in this fiscal year and then reappropriate it into the next fiscal year with addition of any new projects as well. Well, moving on to our fund summaries, we'll have 10 slides going through each one of our different funds. So starting off with our general fund, we have $32.8 million coming in and $32.6 million going out. Our expenses are at $11.6 million below the fiscal year 26, and that's almost entirely because of those non-recurring transfers that I already described. Looking at our fiscal year 26 column, our year-to-date, you can see that we are trending in a positive direction as far as revenues and expenditures. You can also see just the different categories that we have when it looks at operating, personnel, and our other uses and transfers. Moving on to our building fund. You can see here that we have 1.7 million in revenues and 2.8 in expenses. We are working on drawing down that $3.1 million fund balance as we are looking at doing a new system for our software in our building and permitting divisions. Okay, looking at our resiliency fund, you can see here that this is a perfect example where I have that asterisk on our fiscal year 26 budget. Based on where we're at with spending today, that's what we expect to end the year at, and then we would reappropriate funds into fiscal year 2027 for any of those additional projects. This is our multimodal fund. So this fund is to record any of our impact fee activity that's governed by Pinellas County. And so with here, you can see that we have about $323,000 coming in, nothing budgeted or going out. So when we have an eligible project for some of these funds, whether transportation or parks, then those would become programmed as part of our public services team's capital plan. On our capital improvement fund, you can see we have about $42 million, and that's the largest single number within our entire budget. So what that is, you'll see again with our asterisk on fiscal year 26, so we have $4 million that we expect to spend down this year and reappropriate the remainder into our fiscal year 27. A lot of our projects are in a design phase, and so with that happening, you'll see that construction on a lot of these other projects will start to launch within this capital fund next year. Looking at our fleet fund, this is an area where we manage all of our fleet, and the departments, if you will, almost lease their fleet out from public services. So you can see that we're planning on $907,678 in capital outlay replacement of our vehicles in the next fiscal year. In our wastewater fund, you can see that we have our charges for services. We are showing that at an increase with the fee study. While you might question how the 26 budget revenues and inflows is more than the 27 budget, or 26 budget is more than 27, that's because of the transfer that we made from the general fund to help support this wastewater fund. So what we're proposing in this fiscal year is capital outlay in $11.1 million, and you can see that we expect to complete $13.6 million in expenditures for fiscal year 26. In our reclaimed water fund, our service charges, we're showing a rise of $576,000, and our transfer is still needing to occur in this fund, so we are proposing a transfer of $575,000 within our reclaimed water fund so that we have somewhat of a cushion in that fund balance for this particular fund. Moving on to stormwater. So you can see here that we are showing about 3.7 million for revenues and inflows. We do have a transfer from the general fund into stormwater so that we're able to complete our capital outlay as expected. And again, you'll see where our expenditures would be reduced down for any of those projects that need to be reappropriated. And finally, in our parking fund, you can see here that obviously this is where visitors help fund our street maintenance, any of our beach maintenance, public safety, and the city residents do not have to pay for parking. So this is our first full year with parking being its own fund. Historically, it has been part of the general fund. And so we're going to intend to track our 8.8 projected revenue very closely to ensure that what we have forecasted is aligning with what actually occurs. And as I mentioned earlier, this is our most flexible fund that we're able to deploy these revenues for any other projects that we need to complete in the city. Okay, moving on to our capital improvement plan. Since we spent so much time at the beginning of these workshops talking through these, I won't spend too much time here, but you can see in total we have $64.1 million in all of our capital, 78 projects, and $15.9 million in our enterprise funds for wastewater, stormwater, and reclaimed. So you can see the majority of that is in our capital improvement plan. And again, I want to emphasize the fact that on our fiscal year 26, when we bring that back the full budget for this committee and for the commission, you will see that we are projecting what we actually expect to spend on those capital projects, and the rest will be reappropriated. This is just looking at our 10 largest projects. So the Fire Station 22 at $8 million is the single largest project in the budget. Followed beyond that, we have projects into some themes. So we have seawalls and shoreline protection, Pass a Grill Way, the community center, 36th Avenue, and some hurricane damage repairs. We have streets and mobility for Boca Ciega Drive, Gulf Way, roadway rehabilitation. And then you'll see on here that we do have the Gulf Boulevard undergrounding project back on here. Currently, our public services director and city leadership is working with Duke to see if they're able to accomplish the entire project with what we have remaining of the grant, which is $3.8 million. If that negotiation and that conversation does come to fruition, that project would come back to the city commission. So we would receive that full $3.8 million back from Pinellas County. So that's a net neutral project that we have here. Okay, so finally, kind of taking us through our path through adoption. If you want to take a moment on your printouts that I provided for everybody, just wanted to take a moment to kind of share our budget roadshow with our one island, 4 districts, and 1 investment. So we'll be going to each of the different districts from the north down all the way to Pass a Grill. And those times will be posted on our website. So at each one of our stops, you'll see that there's 6 stations or 6 items that we're looking to accomplish. So the mayor and the city manager will open with the budget, where it stands, and what the commission is weighing and what feedback we're looking for. Then I will go through and take the community through where does their dollar go when it is utilized for St. Pete Beach. After that, we'll have a capital project plan on a map so residents are able to see what projects is in each of their own districts and what's across the whole island and what we're accomplishing. Then we're going to have a station where we're looking for input from the community, where if we could have another $3 million if the commission chooses to increase the millage. Where does the community and the residents want to see us spend that? Is it on infrastructure? Is it on parks? Is it on stormwater? Is it on streets? And then we'll have the $250,000 per district park question, where each, or for beautification, where each district has the opportunity to give us some feedback on if they did have some beautification funding, what they would like it to see go towards, or they could choose to put it back into infrastructure. And then finally, at the end, we'll have our thermometer exercise for the community to weigh in and determine whether or not they would like to see the millage rate increased, or if they want to keep it flat, or what their appetite is in that arena. So finally, you can see this is kind of our full path to adoption. So we'll be doing these budget roadshows for the month of August. And then we will have our rate studies completed for stormwater, wastewater, and reclaimed. I'm sorry, for wastewater and reclaimed. Stormwater will be later in March. And then we have 2 public budget hearings for millage and budget.
Say later in March? March for
For
stormwater?
stormwater.
I think we need to be clear, the study's complete.
Yes.
The timing to file with the county has to be done in March because of a different filing timeline.
Thank you.
And so with that, I would take any questions or feedback that you have on where we're at in the budget process so far.
Oh, so many, right?
Oh, yeah.
That was a lot. Thanks, Devin. So, does any,
Yeah.
do you want to start?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Can we bring the slides back?
Can we get the slides back up, please? Oh, perfect. Thank you.
And you're gonna present this to the commission?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm asking questions that I think you might get from the commission.
Perfect.
Okay, all right. Not to be a pain in the ass. but-
No, that's helpful.
Okay, all right. We don't have any page numbers, so it's kind of hard to, but if we can go back up to the top, I'm going to work from the top down. Okay, so next slide. That's fine. Keep going. The first slide I've got reference here is the reserve waterfall.
Okay.
Reverse, the reverse.
The reserve waterfall.
I think it was the reverse.
There it is, right there.
Oh, it's reserve, yeah.
You've got a reference to, under reporting, bottom right, report to the commission and the investment committee. Is the investment committee us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good call out. As we're working through, and as I mentioned, our partners that do the reporting side of our software was purchased by ClearGov. They were once Gravity. And so later this year, after we have this final budget adoption, we will be working with them to produce quarterly reports and monthly reports for our city manager. And with that intent, those quarterly reports would come to this committee.
And what are we going to see quarterly in the quarterly reports? What will that include?
In the quarterly report, so it would be an income statement, a balance sheet,
There you go.
budget to actuals.
Okay.
We'll give you some performance management data where we're explaining, as I did in here, trends that we're seeing on revenues or expenditures. And so it'll be a full packet
Okay.
of information.
And when does that start?
That would start after we adopt this fiscal year.
Okay.
So your first quarterly report then would be, if we're launching October 1st, it would be January.
Great. Okay, good. That'll be great.
Yes.
That'll be good.
Since we're on this side, can I have a question around this one?
Yeah.
Is 10% enough?
So because we have the 25% combined with the 10%, that equates to about $9.8 million. We know immediately for our debris category A and B with Helene that that's initially what we had to launch off of. And so with that, it is comfortable. to have that amount of a reserve. The piece that we need to get to, that this committee will see next year, or even at the end of this year, is financial policies for each one of our funds, because we should have a financial reserve policy for each one of our different funds since they operate so differently. So right now, we just have the general fund target, but each of those should be able to sustain and support their own emergency situations.
I think John's probably going to say it's too much. The $500 hammer.
Oh,
Okay, yeah.
you mean the reserve?
10% might be too much in reserve, yeah. So
What does
you
that
might want to have the
equate to
numbers.
in dollars? What does,
So you're essentially looking at 35% is about 9.8 million.
Okay.
That does not include the enterprise funds. So that's wastewater, reclaimed, and stormwater. What we did in the rate studies is we built in the same type of reserve policy. So in 3 years, each one of those enterprise funds will have 90 days of operating capital.
Okay.
So in Helene and Milton, we had to use, again, all of general fund to
Right.
subsidize all the funds on recovery.
I think that'll be an important thing to say at the commission meeting.
Okay,
Well-
so not only will you have 9.7 in your general fund, you will build another few million in wastewater, another few, and some several hundred thousand in reclaimed and stormwater, because they're based on the size of the fund.
and I'm going to go another direction, contradicting, I guess, this comment, because I think this isn't enough. Because a capital budget that maybe gets something, if there's anything above operating reserves and the hurricane contingency, like there is nothing in, we don't have a capital reserve plan right now. Because we don't actually have, it sounds like yet, an understanding of all of our assets in their life cycles, and therefore what we should be setting aside, so that we are already tracking in advance to know we're building up a reserve for capital
So that's a
projects, right?
separate term we use, it's called an asset management plan,
Okay,
and that is being created this year.
yeah, okay,
That's a separate savings account.
correct.
that
And
has
all I'm
zero.
saying is, this is like,
This is just
this is good,
emergency, something
but
breaks, we didn't think it was gonna
insufficient.
break.
That's my concern. It's good, but not sufficient. So it's actually, I think we're gonna need more to be set aside if we don't wanna be looking at the mountain of 200-some million dollars of capital improvement projects that need to be done without a strategy to fund those. Because, right, every time we put an asset into place, the clock starts for its life cycle, and you start trickling in the dollars so that in 20 years or 30 years or whenever it cycles out, we don't have to say, can we have some more money, please? We can say, there's the money, we set it aside. I mean, that would
That
be
is
our
accurate.
dream, to be able to be in that state, correct? So currently, I'm reading this, and when I heard you present it, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we don't have yet a strategy, unless it's stormwater, wastewater, or reclaimed, against the capital improvements that we need long-term.
You're talking about the infrastructure stuff?
Yes.
The rest of the city. So that's facilities, streets, parks, beaches,
Buildings,
Everything else,
community centers, everything, yeah.
everything else. I
roofs,
understand, and I agree.
AC, all
I think,
that.
I think I agree with that. My question is, how do you fund a reserve for an enterprise fund that's supposed to be seen as a business nonprofit break even? Where does that money come from?
So the enterprise fund, the fee study includes all of the components that are necessary for hypothetically replacement. So you're not making money. You can save money to invest in a future asset. You can't collect more money than you plan to spend.
Okay,
You have a plan that projects all those capital costs, inflation, that's what we just paid Raftellus to do. It's a very complex study.
sure, Yeah.
Now you can justify that we have this asset, we know the life of it, we know the replacement cost, we know inflation, and so they start to build a rate that allows us to, and then allows us to pay for current cost of service, future cost of replacement, emergency. So you have that's why you need reserve policies. You have to defend the placement of that money into a bank account and hold it.
In the billing structure, and we're getting off topic here, but the billing structure for those enterprise funds, do they align with those cost pieces? There's a
That's, yes.
use piece, there's a availability piece.
There's a purchase of the water piece, or
There's
there's
and the treatment of the water piece. And then there's a piece that says, we want to set aside X amount for maintenance.
correct.
And then we want to set aside, say, a different Y amount for
Capital replacement.
replacements, improvements.
Exactly.
So all those pieces come together and become what we charge for the bi-monthly wastewater.
Yes.
And the same process is used for stormwater
Yes. And reclaimed water.
and reclaim.
But they can only work with what the inputs we give them. So
Right.
as the finance director mentioned for stormwater, right now, we only have $8 million of projects identified for the current infrastructure.
Okay.
That does not take into account any new
Right.
stormwater infrastructure, any upgrades to the city addressing sea level rise, right, those sort of things.
And
And so when these things evolve, this is why you do these rate studies every 3 to 5 years, because as we start to find out more needs, we can roll those into rate studies and say, well, now we need this pump station because the climate has changed, or what we're looking at, the factors have changed.
Right. So I think it'd be good for us to tell the folks that are paying their bills that, this piece of it is the water and the treatment. And this piece of it is,
Okay, I can think about how to,
you see where I'm going with that? So that it's not like, wow, water's getting really expensive,
right,
right? And treatment's, getting really expensive. It's like, there's a lot of pieces that go into the cost.
okay,
And we're not building profit, we're hedging for the future and setting money aside so when we need to replace pump station 5, the money's there. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that's a better, easier thing to understand. You can get your head wrapped around that rather than, my water bill just went up,
that's a great point.
Okay.
Did you have anything else you wanted to?
I do.
Rolling. We don't have lights, so.
And not to be hypercritical, but overall, the text on these slides, you guys in the back, show hands, is it hard to read? And you've got a lot of white space in there.
I can make it bigger.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that'd go a long way, especially for the folks at home.
Remember our average age here. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. The ad valorem slide. And page numbers would help. This one right here.
I have it on paper, but.
They're not on the slides. Ooh, I didn't see it. All right, so this one's, we're asking for some questions on it. Our taxes have grown 52% in 6 years. Our ad valorem tax has grown up 52% in 6 years. Did our expenses and spending go up 52% in 6 years?
I think that's a good call out, and one of the items that our city manager wanted us to show is how much of that has been diverted to capital, and how much of that has been
How much has been operating and how much we've taken, the surplus income we've used for set-asides for future capital X. Is that capital spending? Okay. So that might be a good kind of breakdown to see, because you see that and you're like, well, let's lower, if they're going up that much, why are we paying more tax, right?
Sure. Anything else on this one?
Not from me.
Do you know how many homesteaded homes or what percentage of the homesteaded is in each district?
I could find that out of what the homestead is in each district. I know citywide homestead is 30% of our entire base, so the other 70% is non-homestead.
Right.
So, but I could certainly find out. We could map that out for you guys of where there are
I'm just
homesteaded.
imagining the questions that are going to come up.
That's a great
in the
question, 'cause we got
roadshow.
a lot of condos up on the north end, a lot of single families in the middle, and Pasco we all know about, so it's, yeah, it'd be nice.
There's a lot of people that have two homes in Paso Grosso
Yeah.
and up north and down south.
Yeah,
But I know there are a fair amount of people that are homesteaded, so that's why I'm asking that, because I'm going to be at one of these meetings, I'm sure, and I would like to answer intelligently.
Absolutely.
Keep rolling, and then
going?
maybe we'll,
okay.
yeah.
On the revenue trends,
Oops, this one?
ad valorem, next slide that I noted was revenues and trends. Yeah, that right there.
This one? Okay.
Utility service taxes. Okay, I don't know what that is.
Okay. I can explain that further for the commission.
And I'd be willing to bet that maybe it's just me, I don't know, but I don't know what that is.
Can you explain it now for the record?
Let me see what all that is pulling in. And then I can explain it. Can you give me a second?
Yeah.
Perfect.
And also on this slide, you're showing us an amount for the property tax of 15 million. It'd be nice to see an amount for each of the other items, if that's possible.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Like the half-cent sales tax. It kind of begs the question, well, how much are we getting for the half-cent sales tax, right?
That one is around 800,000 a year approximately. And it's proportionate to how many residents. It's based on your population, and that's how we receive that share back from the
I
state.
just picked that as an example.
Yeah, no, that's a fair question.
And then on the rate size slide. or the
Oh,
sc-
before we leave this, do you want to answer that one question? Or did you say you want to come back to that?
The utility
We
service
can come back
tax.
to that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
That one is.
Well, then I'll just ask a quick one. It might be related, just on this page, since you're on it. The franchise fee, Duke Energy, I just kind of made a note here of, is there a fee that the Frontier Spectrum people pay too? And is that something buried? Is that utility service taxes? Or,
So the utility tax is a tax on customers' consumption, and the franchise fee is rent that Duke pays the city for using our right-of-ways. But to your question, I'm not sure. I would have to find out if Spectrum is also, or how
I see
many other.
Frontier's green boxes in our right-of-ways. So I'm wondering about what they pay, but also I'm asking because to what level of accountability do we have to holding them responsible for maintaining all their
They
stuff?
just put the AT&T stuff in, too.
It's just a mess with wires hanging in boxes that are half covered.
The best
over.
strategy we have found is that the actual customer, not the city, calls and files a claim with the vendor. We have seen better response than, we get them through C-Click Fix and we pass them, but we've seen faster response if the actual customer
Just wondering if
paying.
there's a loop here to say, we'll be happy to help reattach the green box for you, Frontier, that's full of water now because you didn't put it back, but we'll charge you more so that you can operate in our city. If we get all these complaints, I mean, you're handling an administrative fee for them too, because the C-Click Fix, I'm just in another,
I can certainly explore that with staff. I can tell you, just based on my experience, anything down that path would require an MOU to touch their property. And it sounds easy, but it becomes a complicated effort and would require
Or we-
more capacity from
Or
city
we,
staff.
I mean, I'm thinking about special magistrate. We're like, yeah, you didn't trim your lawn properly. Like, it's like you guys pay a fee.
I'll check on
And
the
even if we don't touch any of their things, like, we still can fine you. And that'll be incremental fees unless you all spend more time paying attention to dangling wires and busted boxes in the right of ways of people's properties that make them look horrendous. I think they could dial that up just a little more for us. And I agree, I don't want you guys to have to spend any more ergs or cycles on this, but I do want, I would think we could find them if they,
Okay, I'll check on
if
that.
somebody has turned them in, and then maybe we'll get action. So, sorry.
No, that's good. That's good.
I digress on
Okay.
that. Hey, and the stormwater was on this one too, so I know you said state rate studies, but I just thought, you know, what would be important on this is to also note then that we're continuing to go into the red with stormwater another year. And that's not noted on here, so that may be deserving of its own message.
Let's be, I want to be clear about this. We've got the wastewater, we have a tight deadline on the wastewater, because it goes on the tax bill.
No, that's storm.
Or, I'm sorry, stormwater. So that's first and foremost. The wastewater, the wastewater and the reclaimed, we've got some time on. As a board, we have not discussed the wastewater fee structure.
So we don't have, so let me,
And I'm not
Back up
suggesting
a
we do
little
that
bit.
now. I just,
Right.
we need to, we need to do that at some point in time. I would like for us to do that.
We did
I do
that.
believe we did
Tell us,
bring
it
them
might
here.
have been the week before you,
Ref Tellis
yeah.
presented to the board.
Right.
Is it coming back to us?
No,
No.
it comes to you once. We get your feedback, commission makes the final decision.
And they did that.
And the final decision's been made?
They have directed us to proceed with the rate study implementation.
Because we don't have a hard deadline on the wastewater?
You do, because I have to build a budget.
Okay.
So we are proceeding with a rate hearing.
So to cut to the chase, we've got all these different cost pieces built into one fee that comes out every 2 months. There's
Correct.
water, there's the maintenance cost, the availability, the future capital improvements. All that gets mingled together and like, here's the number. And it's all based on the use of how much water you use and having the service available, the pipe connected to the property. They're married together. I think there's issues with that. You know, we've got folks that are in hardship. They're paying the same base fee for water and sewer, and there's no house on the lot. They're using 0 gallons. So what I had hoped for us to be able to do would address that and look at the fee structure, a detailed analysis of the fee structure, and see if we could come out with the same numbers at the end of the process, but with different formulas. So we can say, you know, there's a use component, and there's an availability component.
Wasn't it based on meter size, if I remember?
That was part of the new solution. But we're way off topic here, and I had hoped that maybe as an additional work study workshop, we could look at that.
Well, just to be clear too, on wastewater for a resident, it's a $7.63 change. So it's not, I don't think that will be life-changing for most people,
No, it would
but
be life-changing. It's just, we want to do the right thing. And, you know, if I've got a vacant lot because the house was damaged,
yeah,
and I'm still paying, you know, $200 a month for water and sewer, or if I've got a condo as a second home and I live in it 3 months out of the year, And my monthly water and sewer bill is the same as my neighbors, and the neighbors use 5,000 gallons, and I use 0 every 2 months. I know it's a zero-sum game, but I think there needs to be some equity in those scenarios, just as we're trying to find equity between residential and commercial. So, I mean, that's another discussion altogether. So, I didn't realize that the wastewater billing structure had been done. I thought we still had time to do that because it's not going to be on the annual tax bill. I understand that you need a budget for it. I thought we had time, more opportunity to look at that. So,
Based on the timeline right now, it's going to a public hearing on September 9th. And all the notices have been sent out to,
okay. All right, we'll just play along then. That's good. Thank you. While we're still here, the parking revenue, I had made a note during your presentation, Devin. In fiscal 26, the actual parking revenue was it this 3.59?
Give me 1 second to pull that up.
Are you on this
So that's the 3.9 is our year-to-date actuals in parking revenue. So your question,
So fiscal 26 year-to-date actual is 3.9? Okay.
last year?
last year we budgeted 5.6 million. And with the changes that were made through the study, we were projecting about 8.8 million per fiscal year 27. So a pretty large increase.
Okay, yeah. And your budget for 27 incorporates that anticipated increase?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Well, while we're on that, then when it shows expenses and outflows still greater than that amount, that was a question for me, of 9.265 million. I'm a little confused by that part.
Because we ended our fiscal year 25 with an ending fund balance of 5.9 million.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're looking at what we expect to end fiscal year 26, we expect to have $6.5 million in reserves. And so between the 8.8 million and the 6.5 million, so 8.8 in revenue and 6.5 in ending fund balance, that's how we're able to have a spend of 9.2.
Okay, I guess maybe my question is more that, so we currently don't have a balanced plan for revenues to expenses. So if, I would love to say, that we can spend more because you said, we have some reserves that we can tap into. So it keeps us all compliant. I understand that part, but if it really is costing us this much to fund the street, the beach, the public safety, then we actually maybe still need to work on adjustments to the parking fees, it would seem.
As far as increases?
Yeah. Because it's still not self-funding. But is that not the way to think about it? Okay.
that's not the way to think about it.
Okay, but we're depleting our reserves every year by the way I'm looking at this, right?
My goal on parking, you don't need a lot of reserves in parking.
Right, but we're tapping into, this next year, we're tapping into it to the tune of what, 400, no,
Can you put the slide up so I can
About
see? what you're
yeah, $400,000, rough math.
The parking fund is essentially a cash generator.
looking at? Oh, yeah.
That's what I thought.
Right.
That's why I was a little surprised to
So
see the
parking
over-under.
fund is the only fund in our existence that is for profit.
Okay,
And we have no restricted use.
okay,
So part of the
That's
reason
great.
you're seeing her carry a fund balance is is dependent on one single factor right now, and that is recently did a rate increase. We do not have a full year of
Right.
experience.
There's no history.
So I am not willing,
And that was going to be
and
my
and
next
again,
question.
a budget is
Yeah.
an estimate. As soon as we publish the budget, it's wrong.
Right.
That's
Because
fine.
something changed. Something was more expensive, something was less expensive.
This slide just sends an interesting message, that's
So
all I'm saying.
And which part?
I read it as we have revenues of 8.8.
Okay.
We have expenses of 9.2.
I read it the same way.
So it looks as if we're,
Okay, you need to read it expenses and other outflows because we are transferring money back into the operating to run the city.
you know, what would be awesome is
And into
separate out the
capital.
other outflows as a separate number then. Because it sounds like parking costs us nothing, so it's really all other
Nothing,
outflows.
But it's a couple $100,000
Right.
to run parking a year.
Right, and to have the,
So we can,
it might,
that's a good point. Let me figure out.
This is where that
again, we're
bubble float
explaining it
chart
to all of
would be
us
really handy, you know?
laymen out here
Still
who
working on
don't
that.
You got me that?
know the
Yeah.
lingo.
I'll make a note, it's just parking's so different than any other.
It
fund.
is.
And then you try to plug it into this
Yeah,
format.
yeah,
And it
it's
does
confusing.
become confusing.
Okay.
Some of that's captured in the box on the right, I think.
Yeah, it talks about our other uses, so our general fund transfers, then what the operating expenditures are, the capital outlay, which is that LPR system, which theoretically would increase revenue as well. So
Yeah,
that's
but it's not
another-
costing us just under $2 million to operate the parking fund.
Let me pull up the detail behind that one.
And my follow-up is, you know, if we're guessing or 25 or so percent, 25, 30% increase in revenue from parking from fiscal 26 to fiscal 27, and that increase in parking revenues, you know, baked into the 27 budget, and we don't realize the increase that we've anticipated, we get a significant shortfall, what do we do?
Well, we won't because we'll be tracking and we'll do a mid-year budget adjustment and
Okay.
cut.
Okay, all right,
We're not allowed to go into a negative spending ever.
okay. So we cut costs
We would start cutting
to
costs.
align with loss in revenue.
Exactly.
Okay, okay.
I don't see parking.
That's what
having a
happened
problem.
What's that?
I don't see parking having a problem.
I don't either.
Well, it did.
There's been a lot of
Well, the
pushback.
hurricane.
When the hurricanes hit,
Well, yeah.
that was the
Yeah.
first thing we
Yeah.
tried to get back up and running because we knew it was $500,000 a month.
Yeah.
So we stopped projects. Like, that was the first spending, stop any project that was in process because we have to do recovery.
Right,
So shift your mindset there.
right.
And parking team and public services get the sand out of the parking lots.
Come to the beaches.
I mean, that was
Yeah,
one of our major
Yeah.
revenue sources. So
okay.
that's where you saw, it was an immediate decision
Yeah.
to try to stop the bleeding.
Okay, all right.
That's
You want to
good.
keep rolling?
So part of what you're seeing, just to answer about the 1.9, we do have our PSTA contract at the tune of 240,000 in this fund. We also have our freebie cost
Oh,
at $500,000 in this fund, and so that's where you're seeing the lion's share.
that'd be helpful to break that out. And that's the PSTA, because PSTA is coming up like in a couple of weeks, right? A few weeks, I mean, right? And the freebie is like the
coming up.
cousin to PSTA, so let's blow that out in the slide and show that that's part of that
Okay.
operating
Yeah.
expense.
Are these the actual slides we're going to use in the roadshow? Or,
No.
okay.
We're using this packet for the roadshow.
If we want
So you're
to put
not
all
gonna
the
have
residents to sleep, these are the slides we. It's like,
do you mean?
Wasn't
No, I'm kidding. The other piece that's in here too, if we recall when we were looking at parking, it was the committee's recommendation, and the commission agreed with it to not pass the percentage for credit cards onto the consumer for parking. So that is $317,000.
It's a big one.
It's a big one, that's included in here. And then We also have to give the county half of what we make at County Park. So that's another 650,000 that goes out. So to your point, all of that is
Yeah.
what is making up those big numbers to manage it. I mean, staffing, we have about $200,000 that staff at this fund. So
Where were
it's not
those
a lot.
expenses coming from before we isolated a parking fund?
They were just in the general fund.
Okay.
So we're really trying to put things where they
Yeah.
think they should logically be.
Well, and on that note, I mean, and since we're talking parking fund, and it's on the kind of the backs of what everyone talks about, tourists primarily, right? How do we pour it back into community-oriented things? I mean, it seems like this could be a conversation to say, well, there's a pretty big increase on costs for aquatics, costs for community centers or libraries or whatever. How do we want to maybe look at this as a more strategic tool to fund those things? Is that a wise thing to look at? And does it peel off the costs so that we could allocate it differently?
So long-term, yes. I think I was thinking about it this morning on my beach walk. The county has this wonderful sign up that says your bed tax pays for
Right.
beach renourishment. And I thought, well, we should start saying your parking fees pay for these beautiful streets you drive into the city and
Yep.
beach beautification and maintenance. And so, yes,
Having libraries and
Longer-
gathering places and parks that are
Long-
beautiful or whatever, right? Yeah.
longer term, there's definitely some value in monetizing tourism investment back into city quality of life. So that will be something I'll be working on this next year as the budget evolves and we stabilize this fund.
Yeah.
Because I really want to see
Yeah.
what a
Because
year looks like in the life of the new
if
parking.
businesses are worried about, oh, my business is going to be impacted, which, some have suggested that. But if you said, you know what, and this is kind of one of my favorite things on our list that's unfunded is the Corey Avenue Monument sign. Like, well, right? I think it's unfunded still. I don't know.
It is unfunded.
Right. So, it'd be like, oh, that's $75,000. Like, parking fund. Done. Like, let's make it pretty. Oh, and then, so when you park there, you don't feel so bad. Pay $5, $6. Because it looks real pretty. And must be a nice place to shop. But anyhow, we digress. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
I think another note to point to too is if Amendment 3 passes, there's restrictions on what we can even use ad valorem for, and so
Right.
there's
I wanted to
gonna
bring that back up
be a
when we get there.
diversification of, is it parking, is it, how are we paying for things like parks and recreation, library, are all of our internal service departments, because it's very specific about what the ad valorem can be utilized for moving forward. So if that passes, we'll be needing to look at what our options are.
So there's a slide, right side, after revenue trends, there's a right size. Right size, thank you.
Right size, the revenues,
All right,
enterprise.
so future capital is now built into the rate structure. I think that's under wastewater, and this is kind of a throwback. I don't mean to like throw salt in the wound, but this is just right. So future capital is now built into the rate structure. So you've already answered that question. Part of the fee that the resident pays for water and sewer is future expense to maintenance and replace, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And my note here was, when do we review the rate structure?
Done.
Darn, yeah, okay. Guess I missed that party. The building fund, which is,
Sorry, before you leave that
Yeah.
page, since you were on it,
Yeah.
I really would love to make sure we're clear about the stormwater message.
Okay.
What
Which,
part?
is, I'm gonna make the assumption, so let's not do that. How about this? I believe that we had a conversation around rate studies with stormwater, and if we adopted the new rate, then we were going to do X number of capital improvement projects. We now don't have that rate, and it wasn't, I don't know, I think that the attorney was looking into options to do something, to get something like the $30 added someplace else, but if it's not, then it means we're taking out, I don't know, I'm making up $700,000 from the budget or something, because we won't implement the rates until,
The rates will be implemented 28.
so we can't do something, or we're reallocating general fund into this to subsidize it again. And since we're all in this, like, digesting this, are we right-sized as a city with our millage rate and our rates, and why should I feel good about this or that? I just think it's more important that we continue to expose that you guys are always gonna make us very clean and healthy to never, be in a situation that we can't afford. However, it doesn't mean we're getting what we need to done. Maybe in a different world, we would be doing a different project that's no longer feasible. That's all.
As you'll see in the budget roadshow, we have not reached the summit of the mountain.
Right, okay.
We are making good progress, though.
Yeah, of course. Every year, chipping away. Okay.
We're having fun here. The building fund, and I don't know which slide it is, but maybe it's the building fund slide. There it is. Is it practical to think of the building fund as an enterprise fund?
Absolutely, it is. So it cannot be spent on anything other than services to provide permitting, inspection,
Right.
plan review.
And there's a cost for that.
And just note for the public, this is the last fee study that's in progress right now. It was almost complete, and then the Florida legislature passed a new law. And so we had to send the new law back to, Ralph Tellis is also doing this study.
Okay.
And so they had to overlay that law into the analysis, and they're tracking to September, October. So this very well could be we will be implementing new fees mid-budget year, and then if it drove a budget adjustment, we would do so at the same time
Sure. As a governmental fund,
as an enterprise fund.
as an enterprise.
It is self-contained.
It is
I
already.
can't, we cannot use any of this money for anything other than building-related expenses.
Okay. So even though we're calling it a governmental fund, it's operating.
So technically, because this would be considered really a special revenue fund because it's accounting for revenue that is restricted. The accounting side of it is a governmental fund where it's following that same format that we use when we're doing accounting for the general fund. So that's the bigger difference is, yes, it operates very much like an enterprise fund, but it's truly a special revenue fund.
Okay.
Sorry.
Not that that
No,
really
it's-
means anything to
that's
me,
okay.
but
Well, okay, so if I could just ask a question in the building fund, knowing that it is, this one, unlike parking, is in a box that cannot be used for anything other than building. Now, let me ask you this, though. We know that we love all the rebuilding happening of our neighbors coming back to their homes, but there are impacts that their contractors have on our city. Whether it could be an impact to the potential of our wastewater and they didn't cap things off and we have to do that, or they busted up a sidewalk, which we know our public works department came back because the weight of things just cracked like, several feet of sidewalk. Are those things then able to be funded and repaired rather than having to come out of our capital budget because it was impacted by a building and an inspection and can we look at that differently? Because that feels really painful to me that I have to pay taxes to fund a sidewalk that was damaged from a building a contractor's negligence.
So there's a different process for that. If it's a city contractor, we have contracts where negligence.
I don't know, it's not city contractors, these are,
This is a private contractor?
yes, that are being used to rebuild a home. And they destroy city property.
I believe that would be a similar situation where they would be liable.
Okay, so hopefully then this building department has the appropriate funding for legal to get us money back so that we're not paying it out of our taxes to repair those kind of things. It occurred
I would want to
recently,
follow up.
so we
but-
could,
And we would want to be reported because damage to city property does allow us to file a claim against the person who damaged it. I
Okay.
guess is the best, most simplest way to describe it.
right, and so all of that should be covered in this
No.
building fund.
It
That-
can't be because the building fund per Florida state statute can only be utilized to enforce the Florida building code.
Okay, so it should cover the legal and attorney fees to enforce that against the contractor.
No, this is a claim, so it would come under the city's general liability insurance. We would go through our city attorney's office, we would file a claim and seek reimbursement through whatever. And usually it would be insurance to insurance, just like if you're in a car accident. We would file a claim, contractor would submit it to their insurance, we would try to get the money back
Okay.
to. But it's not gonna come out of the building fund.
And the way we recoup some of that is through the cost allocation. So, with our attorney's office, with finance, with all of those different items, that the building fund does pay into the general fund for any of those administrative services that they utilize for things like payroll and recruiting and
They pay like an overhead,
Okay,
because they can't run independently. They need a city manager, they need a
correct.
HR department,
Okay.
they need a finance department.
Okay,
They pay rent for City Hall. We can charge them rent for a space. So
all right.
they have to kind of run like a business, and we charge them for those services back to the general fund.
Okay, this is interesting. Thank you.
And then the only other thing I have here, the resiliency fund, the wild card resiliency fund. So, and whether it pertains to this slide or not, I don't know, but on the road show, I think there's going to be a lot of questions from citizens about the resiliency fund. And what is it? Why do we have it? What do we spend it on? I heard for the first time a few weeks ago that if we raise an additional $3 million, half of it has to go to the resiliency fund. Is that right? Did I hear that right?
That's the current city commission policy, yes.
Okay, so that's a big number. So we lose half of what we raise to the resiliency fund. Well, what is a resiliency fund? That's really the question. And then of the other half, we can spend it on whatever, we find consensus for repair and improvement throughout the city, right? Capital projects, not operating expenses, because we got to. And I like the fact that you framed, our operating budget, just to keep it in layman's terms. Our operating budget, we're going to hold flat from 26 to 27. That ought to be like the first thing that we roll out with. It's like, just to set it in context. We're not charging them more to run the city. We got a lot of projects that we got to fund.
Right.
We got to catch up, and then we got to move forward. So so I think an explanation, a dummy down, and some bullet points on the resiliency fund, what that is, how we utilize it. Is what I understand is that we have it. It's a good thing to have. If we didn't have it, we wouldn't be able to apply for certain grant monies. So we don't want to get rid of it. But it's been a point of confusion for us here.
We've talked about it a number of times.
We have. And if it's confusing for us, it's confusing. I mean, because we're here studying this stuff.
Right. All right, we'll work on that.
And then there's a slide from,
Before you leave that too.
yeah, go ahead.
Just since we're on resiliency,
Yeah.
one of the things that just jumps off the page for me that kind of makes me a little sad is there's no full-time there's nobody that we have working on it. And I know that's not really necessarily true, but if you don't have anybody who's like, my job, it is to, one, tell what the community is, what's resiliency, we care about it, it's super important, we're fixing this, we're building out that. And I'm focusing on this, and I'm gonna speak on it, and like, I just think we need to have, if this is critical, which I'm like, we're a barrier island city, right? We're surrounded by water, it totally makes sense in some ways, and then I'm like, let's then make sure there's at least a body that says, all I eat, drink, sleep is making this city a better, resilient island.
That's fair. We'll look at that, because just to give context for the broader community and you all, just historically, this policy was only adopted, I believe, in 2022.
That's what I
Yeah.
heard, yeah.
So it's a very new
Yeah,
fund. This is the last fund, I would say, at the tail end that we're trying to provide the clarity that the community's looking for
Right.
as we marry it up to a decade's worth of studies
yeah.
on infrastructure of the city. And so, and then last year was really the first year the commission put any money away.
Oh.
So it had zero, I believe, when I got
Yeah,
here.
Maybe
and we got-
$150,000 or something.
No, I think it had zero.
Zero,
I'll go
okay.
back to confirm
Okay.
when I arrived. And then
That's
we got
important to know, too.
we got a grant
Yeah.
from Representative Cheney for 600, and I think 85,000 for
That's right.
a repair in a storm water basin area in the Don Cesar neighborhood. That was the first funding mechanism. And now the commission's moving into more money moving into it because, and we'll work on that messaging because it really is for protection of the barrier island from all the water threats, is what it is.
Yeah,
And so it's not paying for, it's intended to pay for the water threats that we are
There you go.
facing.
and it just, if we look at the slide that shows the top 10, David Letterman's top 10 capital improvements for St. Pete Beach. We go back to that, the Pass-a-Grille seawall for $3.8 million.
That could easily be funded from this.
Right there.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's the, I can get my head wrapped
Yeah,
around
okay.
that, right? And I'm thinking, the parking fund, we all know what parking is. If you kind of paint a parallel between parking fund and resiliency fund, well, resiliency is these 1, 2, 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
Parking is parking. So you kind of take the parking fund template and apply it to the resiliency fund. And now you can start to have a framework to explain
Yeah.
what that is. You can understand.
That's good feedback. Thank you.
And the $3.8 million Pass-a-Grille seawall project, I mean, if you look here,
On that note, you should put in parentheses,
yeah, there it is.
should be resiliency fund funded, right? I mean, it should be, you're moving.
I mean, the community center seawall replacement could be
Right,
there.
it should be a resiliency project, but we
Pass-a-Grille seawall,
don't,
yeah, number 4 is
like,
capital improvement.
let's call that out. I think it's a good message to reinforce if we're keeping this, which it sounds like the commission wants to keep it. So if we keep it, then let's stay true to it.
Right.
Yeah,
And you're seeing us try to build up a recurring revenue source
yeah.
Right,
that then our public service director knows I have a recurring revenue source into this fund
Right.
where he hasn't in the past. So he's been using general fund because that's what we gave him, not him.
Yes, of
And
course.
so it's all just moving it all so we can communicate and there's
Yes.
accountability. I always say you got to follow the money.
yes,
I want you guys to be able to follow the money
right.
and see where it went and see where it came from and see where it goes.
Exactly, yeah. And this is a good way to do that. Don Cesar, Boca Ciega Resiliency Adaptation, Resiliency Fund. Do we have a slide, we got a slide for the resiliency, fund. What's our current balance in that fund?
Yeah.
Well, if you go back, we don't have enough to pay for those two projects.
No, that's why I'm
Right.
asking. So,
So we probably ought to reflect the other ones should be resiliency fund, and we don't have enough, so they'll be backed by general, all of them. But they should show resiliency at least for a communication level.
Could the parks stuff come out of that too? Or is that a different
Well,
place?
Technically, legally, yes, but the goal would be to show typically, and you would use property tax to fund parks, streets,
Yeah.
facilities.
Okay.
Long-term, I think parking's gonna start tracking into funding streets. The goal would be eventually to reduce ad valorem. As this all starts to level out, that's the goal. I just want everyone to know that, it's not.
parking can
Right,
go,
'cause you
parking can
want-
go anywhere.
Right, and so parking can start to fund infrastructure.
Yeah.
And so that reduces the pressure on the ad valorem tax. And then ad valorem really just starts to fund capital that are facilities, parks, the things the community uses every day,
And operating, right?
and operating. So we're on a journey to right-size all of this and then be very understandable and consumable.
Yeah, yeah. So the resiliency fund, not to get into the weeds here, but we got a budget or a current balance of 364, like as of today or yesterday, or
Correct?
okay, and we're showing expenses of 5 million on this slide. So there's a big disconnect right there. I think you brought this up earlier, right? Where it was, or Kathy, I mean, it's like there's a disconnect. It's so it naturally begs that question of where do you get from how do you get from 364 to 5 million? And if we do the higher millage rate, and we see an additional 3 million, and half of it, 1.5, needs to go to resiliency, does that 5 million become 6.5, or does it become 3.5?
Those are expenses and outflows, so that doesn't actually
Yeah.
have to change.
So the
However-
3.64, the 364 gets added to the 1.5. So it's confusing, at least for me it is.
So in fiscal year '26, the commission decided to take $5.8 million and transfer that out of the general fund into the resiliency fund. Because we're showing that we're going to complete about $267,000 in capital this year on design for projects or studies, that's where you're seeing how that revenue minus expenses then equates to what your beginning fund balance is, because our beginning fund balance in that fund for fiscal year '25 was 1.9 million. And so once you add all of that together, you can see where we're dipping into those reserves to complete those projects. Now, back to what the city manager said, we don't have a recurring revenue source dedicated to resiliency unless that is an increase in your millage, and then that's the 50% that goes over there.
Okay.
But if the millage doesn't increase, like we know it hadn't for 9 years, then we don't have a dedicated revenue source. So this is an intentional dip into fund balance so that we can budget to complete the capital projects that are listed within this fund currently, but there's no long-term reoccurring, if that makes sense. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. And, I have a fundamental problem with millage rate because it's just this arbitrary number, and it's born of, the value of the asset. In this case, the asset of St. Pete Beach is what, 5.1 billion. If it were 10.1 billion and our operating costs were the same, our millage rate would be half. It's just a number.
That's why we look at it every year.
What's that?
That's why we have to look at it every year.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. And the other thing I find interesting while we're on this is that, the total value of the beach we've had 2 years to recover, but there's been very little change in the overall value year over year for the past 12, 18 months, right?
Of housing or?
You know,
Value, that's why the flat rate,
Total value.
25 valuation was close to 26 valuation.
that's why the flat rate is
It's
literally-
$80,000.
literally flat.
Yeah, yeah. Despite all the damage and,
Okay, any other questions?
No, that's it.
Okay, how about you, Miss English?
He answered actually a lot of them. Did we get it to a number on what we need for infrastructure? Because I know I'm going to be asked why we recommended that we increase the millage here. Do you remember what?
For fiscal year, for next year. So for next year, that's where we're showing the 64 million in capital projects. But we're looking at over the next, here somewhere. I think it's 235 million over the next however many years. I just don't.
Okay. I thought you said three.
Okay, so for our 5-year, which this doesn't have 2027 in it, it is 235 million that we'd be looking at through fiscal year 32.
All right, and then, what are your thoughts about us attending all the road shows? Is that,
Come on down.
oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
even, like, can I go to the other districts?
Oh, yeah, everyone is invited to every district. We just wanted to give every neighborhood an opportunity to come with their neighbors
Okay.
in a more intimate, or in their district setting.
Yeah, I'd like to go because I want to see what happens in the other ones before we get to mine.
I think you're last right now, so we'll be.
On the
we'll be-
24th,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll be super ready for you by the time we get there.
Well, I'll be there next Wednesday.
Bill, sorry, we're practicing on
We
you.
have our
Hey,
first
that's
one
bring it
tomorrow
on.
night.
That'd be great. No problem.
Tomorrow night is District 1
Yeah.
Yes,
6 p.m.
yes.
at the community center.
Great. I think, by the way, on your question, I do think that looking at all the figures for capital improvement project fund, and then the 10 largest fiscal year 2027 capital appropriations, I'm just looking at the different pages. It caused me, let's start with that capital improvement project fund versus, I don't know which page I want to flip back to, but here's where I think sometimes a reasonable person in the community looks and says, why do you need more money? You have $64 million. That's a lot. Or 72 million the previous year. But I don't know that this helps us really be clear what is reappropriated and what is new money.
Okay.
And that, I think, is something really smart for us to create credibility to what we're doing,
Okay.
as far as ever saying why you need, $3 million more. So that'd just be one thought on, in general, across wherever we look in capital improvement space, can we more clearly, at least, and you can put a big, like, this is subject to change, because every day, Camden and his team hopefully are cranking and getting another thing done, and we are locking those dollars in and spending them, right? But in the meantime, we're gonna say, yeah, we got a big push of 40 million infusion into the next year because we couldn't close the contracts in the calendar year, whatever it is. I don't know what the right answer is.
Understood.
That was just one thing. And then this may be a conversation for another day, but something that I'm hearing in the community as I'm talking and trying to socialize why they care to accelerate an infusion of some money to get things done. We look at, like, on page 10, I think you call it Jaylen, whatever, I don't know, the 10 largest capital appropriations, and I don't know if the largest makes it, and if that's important or not, but it's multi-year projects that I think folks are like, well, this commission changes and things get forgotten, and then we're trying to, you know, or something becomes more important the next year. Is there a way of holding, because I know the city staff, and our dream is that we have some consistency while this elected body could ebb and flow. But how do we get a commitment to say, I think the undergrounding is a great example, right? Where you said there was a point where we were locked in, we were supposed to execute it, it was gonna take X number of years. Well, it clearly took longer, and now did we lose our, you know, our ability to execute it? How do we manage through multi-year cycle commitments with a changing commission? And not to be answered here, but how do we think about that with the community? Because I think that is, you know, a challenge and something that is frustrating, I think, to people, because they don't know, just because we say you're gonna fund something, it may not happen.
I think what's going to happen too on the roadshow is people are going to want to know what is not being funded.
I love that you said that, and that was like my comment on your budget roadshow slide. Like, I love the flow you've created, but I think to what you just said, Kathy, like, one, opening remarks. Two, where's your dollar go? One island, one community. That one, which says capital plan on the map, projects in all 4 districts. You know what? I would love to pause there and say, these are the projects, but here's what are the unfunded projects in your district too. You know, at this point, I don't mean District 2, I just mean
Right.
also, these are the things that we already have on our radar, just so you know, in case, because somebody is like, well, you didn't put Mary Pier. I don't know what it is, whatever their favorite thing is, or the Corey Avenue Monument sign is not showing funded once again. And that's the one thing I care about. So at least it acknowledges it's there, it remains unfunded. Should you think that that's incorrect, join the conversation, right?
And maybe
So-
that would influence decisions that people are going to be asked to make on the thermometer.
Yes. Okay. That was just another thought that somehow I think in acknowledgements, like see, click, fix, you know, okay, we dropped it in there, but is anybody going to do anything about it? You know, is it on the radar still, but it just can't be funded? You know, it's one of those messages I think would be helpful. Did you have other comments on this?
No,
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in if you were.
No, my Post-its are all.
Okay. Then I'm just going to look quickly to see if there was anything
Are
else.
these packets going to be handed out at the road shows? Is that?
Yes, I think that's what Devin
Much
said.
of it will, some of them are boards that won't be
Okay.
actually handed out, but there's a pretty significant handout packet that I think
Yeah.
has like 6 or 7 pages.
Yeah, it is.
So we want people to have an experience, take something with
Get
them,
engaged.
and it'll be interactive.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
No PowerPoints, it's all boards and community group, you know, questions, and we have staff available at different stations as they're reviewing the materials, and then we have a brief verbal presentation about the boards.
And as you walk in, you'll grab one of these.
Yes, we'll have handouts for you.
Okay.
A question on the, I don't know if everybody in the community uses the expression FTE, so you might just want to say full-time equivalent, but that was just a little nit. I'm familiar with that expression, but I guess the question too, are we hiring, are we fully staffed? You know, is that something that you want to comment on at this point? Because I know one of the investments you're making is in HR, right? And I know it's beyond just like helping us be.
As far as vacancy and attrition, or?
No, on the general fund departments, like we have a 23.5% increase in human resource because, you know, it was,
It's just a small team.
yeah, right. So, but I'm just saying, and then I was just kind of tying it in my head to FTEs, we're holding flat, but are we fully staffed? Or do we're still filling vacancies and, yeah, okay.
Yeah, typically within community development, within fire and EMS, they run anywhere from 1 to 3 headcount attrition or vacancies at any given time.
Okay.
So, and same with public services in our larger departments. Our smaller departments, you don't see the vacancies as often, but
Okay.
You will see that within those areas as well.
On that right size the revenues and enterprise funds, page, going back one more time, just because I don't know if there's value, but, 14 million, 3.8, 2.3, 8.9, we kind of touched on the fact that, well, maybe this is reflective of the fact that we won't have the rate change in stormwater coming this year. But if there's a sense of what are the deferred amounts that are kind of underlying in these areas, just again, to reinforce, because I think the conversation is, do you want to infuse $3 million more into the city or not? But if you got a healthy 14 million in wastewater, do I need to care? Or is it, underneath the tip of the iceberg that we're tackling of 14 million, there's a clear, 7-year horizon of another 53 million? I don't know, but is it useful to look at that? And maybe, I don't know if you guys think
No.
that's useful, but sometimes I think I'm trying to accomplish too much on one page,
No,
but it was
you're
just a
raising a good
thought.
point, because you've got wastewater, 14 million, at the end of the year, in a perfect world, that's zero.
Yes, right. We burned
The
through that entire amount
Parking
to get things
of
done.
8.9 at the end of the year, it might be 3 million. There might be a 3 million, pick a number. But the enterprise wastewater, stormwater reclaim, to me, are like nonprofits. With the exception of capital set-asides
So yes, and plus they need a reserve.
and the reserve, Yeah, that's, but other than that, but parking is fundamentally different.
It is fundamentally
And this slide makes it look like they're all the same.
understood.
There's really no, well, there are cost factors for parking because we've got PSDA and freebie, and so again, it's
Okay, just a couple more things, and I know we're running long. So, just start from the very beginning, like if somebody only reads through the very first page, one framework reviewed every year, and sees that 85.4 million, I would love for us to be clear again, like what is the reappropriated amount within that?
Okay.
Okay, it's just a big, big number, that's all.
reappropriated. In other words, what's
Yeah, so-
come forward from last year.
Right, and separate them into two different digits
Yeah.
or something on that. The total is 85.4 million. Your financial policy slide, how the budget is built and controlled, Devin, I just thought, I'd love to know, like, maybe this isn't for this year, but to the degree that you could say we're operating at a best-in-class level, or what does that mean to us as a community? And how are we where are we doing, moving us forward on that journey? So we could get excited about it, or, know that we still got work to do.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that's, when I first started on this committee, you were just starting to put some of these processes in place and talking about the history, and we have come a long way, I think, and we should be proud of that.
Yeah, and/or we're working on it, and that's kind of part of what this conversation's always gonna be focused on. That's fine too, yeah, but that's
You
awesome.
might want to put in there, to their point, the GFOA awards
Okay.
that you've received and that you're pursuing.
Okay.
Because that is part of our budget process. It informs how we put this together.
Good.
I can do that. Yeah, and then I can show just what we have remaining left to do with our financial policies and other areas as well, so.
Okay. And then the three policy sets that shape this budget, revenue, debt, and capital. Gosh, this is worth spending a lot more time on, and I know you're not going to at this stage. But there's a lot of power behind this that you're not going to get to, but I feel like it's unfortunate, because I think there's so many things that fuel things together. They're not, as you know, I mean, they're not three distinct things. They actually work together really well. And that, federal and state grants are pursued aggressively, targeted towards capital improvement. Like, However, it's like to show, I've kind of used the expression, show a day in the life of a government dollar oriented conversation, because if we put the, money to work, then it allows us to say it's important enough to be able to even pursue a grant, so you can't just ask for money if the city hasn't put a staked claim that this is a critical project. So I don't know, some of those conversations, hopefully we can bring them out over the coming year. So maybe next cycle, we have that, continue to build off of this great, by the way, roadshow. I think will create a dialogue. And I think we kind of got hung up on your impact, high, medium, and low on that, like, key policy changes. So if it's really about like how you are prioritizing it versus that, can it have a big impact on us as a city, I would change that. If it's, because, I mean, ideally, if it's higher, then it means it's gonna have a higher, big impact on the city. But if it's more about, hey, we're actually behind here, so I placed it at a higher priority, I don't know, either redo it or lop that column off, because I don't know that adds enough value. Okay, that was my only other comments. And I think you brought up the roadshow, so I don't know if that ends the presentation portion, unless something else came up. I just maybe would take just one moment to share with my colleagues here.
Before we move on,
yeah.
can I just answer Board Member Thompson's question about the sewer rates? Because I just want to clarify for the public. If a resident has the water completely off and disabled, meaning they have called Pinellas County water utility and shut it off, they do not pay sewer.
Okay, that's good to know.
So if you are completely out of commission and not connected to, the key is, are you connected to the system? That's what you're paying for.
Well, yeah, thank you.
So it's not gonna help those who maybe have done nothing, they're not living there. I understand that concern, but I just wanted to let you know the rebuilds do have some remedy.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you for checking that in real time, Francis. And that's probably.
That's great.
Let me, if I could, that's probably, I'd like to dig deeper into that at a later date, so.
Yes, sir.
The citizens' budget in brief, I think is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I love that. And we need to, I'm suggesting you popularize that. It's like, we've dumbed it down, it's in English.
What are you referring
Right?
to? One of these?
It's the 10-page executive summary.
Coming soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of the 200-page, fiscal year-end report, it's a 10-page executive summary of the fiscal year-end.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
All right.
And we'll be doing that. There's a People's Annual Comprehensive Financial Report as well that we'll be doing for fiscal year 26. So that's the component to that same budget in brief, where you can understand our annual comprehensive financial report better. And that's a 5 to 10 page brief document instead of 160 pages like our annual comprehensive report.
In the quarterly reports, I know my predecessor who sat in this chair was a champion of doing quarterly balance sheets, and I'm carrying that forward. So, could you and staff, by any stretch, and it's a 6-week time frame at the end of the quarter to when you publish that, I think, have I got that right, 6 weeks? Okay. And the last fiscal quarter would be July, August, September?
Yes.
Okay. Could we publish in November a fiscal Q4 26 quarterly?
We should be able to. I don't see a reason why we wouldn't. It would just be marked up as unaudited.
Prime the pump with
Yep.
it?
Yep, absolutely.
I think there'd be value in that. I'd like to hear briefly from you guys if you think that's, I'm not about creating work, but
Oh.
I think the more quarterly reports we get, balance sheets otherwise, the more.
Yeah,
in real time, because we just published the 25 year-end financial. So it's, yeah.
Absolutely. So the only pause I have is we've implemented a new finance system. We're moving into the phase of optimization of that finance implementation. So I was just, but if my finance director says she can do it, then I'm fully supportive of it. I just wanted to
Okay.
give her grace as she's trying to
Okay. I'm not about
optimize these
creating
new
work. I
systems.
just- Those are key financial statements to look at, so we can track where we are in more real time, I guess.
And when we track to those reporting cycles, it'll be anywhere from a 6-week to an 8-week implementation for us to switch from Gravity to ClearGov. And
Yeah.
that would be our expectation, is that we would be able to launch with that first report, being for that, we could make that for that final fiscal year 26 quarter.
Yeah, that'd be great if we could do that. And then finally, the state handed down, every municipality has to look at cutting expenses by 10%. Am I saying that right?
That's a requirement for the next budget cycle
Not for fiscal 27,
for 28.
but for fiscal 28.
So we will go through that exercise next year.
Would it be appropriate to include that in that messaging in the roadshow? Or are you going to confuse things? You could put that out there. I'm just
I
tossing.
do think
I'm
it's
just
mixed
tossing that.
messaging.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
That's one of the reasons I wanted, I mean, you can ask my team, I wanted to get ahead of it and go
Sure.
ahead of the state and be
Yeah.
the high performer. And with so many moving parts this year, we were like, we are just gonna confuse people if we're like,
Okay.
oh, here, you have all these needs. Oh, here, let's cut over here. So we thought we better just stay very focused, and then we will do the state mandatory exercise next year.
But between that and the Senate bill, it's probably worth a nicely written kind of Q&A for you all to have, so that we're all saying the same thing about it. It might just, it's not about adding material, but are we all saying the same thing consistently in these road shows about that, if it should come up, and how it will affect us in the coming year? Because it
Yeah.
is a factor in how we're going to have to relook at this whole thing again next year.
I think when the message comes out that our operating budget for fiscal 25 or fiscal 26 and fiscal 27 is the same. I mean, to me, that tells it all right there. We're not costing you guys more to run the government,
Yeah, we're not adding people.
right?
Right. Yeah.
And the fact that you can do that, given what's happened, is huge, I think.
I agree with that, and I think that's at the heart of why we all said last time an infusion is about, and that's where I added this for us, and whether it's helpful or not, but it's about accelerating the time to executing
Yes,
against
yes.
capital improvement projects.
Yes.
That's it.
There's
That
some-
is
there-
it. It
there's
isn't to add 10 new staff members or,
Right.
yeah, to add more, whatever your favorite thing is, but that's the spirit of this, and telling everyone, and if you look at this and you would like it, I would love to have you guys take it and pass it out to your constituents, but, I mean, I do think that it is about us honestly saving money in the long run.
So take it away. You got.
Oh, okay, just briefly.
Yeah, take it away.
Thank you to the city team, Devin, for working on this to try to translate a lot of things that we've talked about in this committee, and maybe offline with you as well, but just that this is a double-sided page that is about a resident, we're calling this a resident-led initiative, because that's who we are when we leave from here, right? And the spirit of this is just for our conversations, the language of it's not about if, but it is about when. We have a list of about 230, and I think it's on here. Where is it? Yeah, on the funded versus unfunded, on the back side, it will say 235 million of unfunded backlog. So whether, and so today we have the 53 projects funded at 56.6 million. So the real question is, if what, as these great road shows are gonna happen, to just consider this, that it's not about if but when, and ultimately by infusing 3 million more, what could we do? What could we do that will ultimately get us faster results
I think that's
at a
great.
better price? And so that's kind of the spirit of what, if you read through this, because I don't want to take a lot more
It's kind of like
time.
we spend 3 million now, we get, if we don't, we'd wait, it's going to cost us 3 million plus
Right.
later, right?
It will cost, yes, and there's a
Yeah.
nice chart on the back page about the cost of waiting, and just kind of sorting out some of these things in our own mind. And then I think what's also helpful is that defined plan on the bottom would be something that maybe either the commission can decide on, or I don't know if we can, or the city manager with Devin, consider, but this notion of if we, we'll have a more defined viewpoint about what happens with the $3 million. Although even the 1.5 that would go into resiliency, should this be adopted, would still be about what is it going to be used for, and
Right.
people are still going to comment on that. So let's just say the other 1.5 is a little more free because it's a general fund allocation that can go at anywhere. But the idea of saying it's defined and we would have this multi-year commitment to the community, and it doesn't need to be like these are exclusive. They could be, you could do all of these things. We have to do public progress tracking. We could use this forum, or a commission meeting is probably better. And then having actual written, review points where we actually are having this documented and continuing to commit to that and revisit those rates as we retire other projects that don't need to be funded. So it isn't a forever thing. So that's kind of what this does on a page for a conversation around the power of your dollar, and basically your $24 per month
Is it-
infusion.
Nicely
Did the
done.
commission vote on the 3 million?
Yes.
Because they capped it, right?
So they gave us direction to file the trim rate at a higher rate than the
Flat.
current flat rate of 3.0913.
Okay, so what was the
Okay.
trim rate? I can't remember that either.
The trim rate that was filed was 3.6715.
It's right here on this page
On
in
your-
the yellow.
Oh, thanks.
But what's important, and we'll say,
Proposed. Well, I work with the experts, so.
we'll say this at the roadshow,
Okay.
we have built a budget on the flat rate. So regardless of what the commission decides during the millage adoption process,
Right.
the budget's built at the flat
That's a
rate.
great way to do it.
Yeah,
It's
I agree.
beautiful.
So every extra dollar, then the plan would be to bring that bucket of money back, because I don't want them to make decisions that night and say, oh, let's do this project and that project. We would come back with the project list and the prioritization, because we have this whole prioritization process that we've gone through, and say, okay, what would you like us to allocate this money towards? And then we would proceed with communicating to the community, what did you buy?
Okay.
What did you give for your $3 million?
And then the,
track that money itself, because I really want to keep it separate for transparency purposes, that you really bought capital. You
Right.
it didn't get sucked into operations.
Yes.
It got protected and moved into a specific project and outcome.
I mean, I know my constituents would appreciate that. I mean, I literally had a conversation with someone yesterday who said, we've got to have the stormwater taken care of, because when I drive my golf cart under the street at Isla, it stinks. The pipes are leaking everywhere. So I think people know some of that's going on. So.
Yeah. The other thing I'll just comment on the very, maybe it's aggressive to say the bargain, but it is the lowest city rate. And I did take the step, I feel it is a bargain. But the idea of this, I know I've heard some people talk about, well, I've heard people say, if we were unincorporated, we wouldn't have a city staff, it would be way cheaper. Well, pull up the taxes. I did it for Tierra Verde. And you know what? What's really fun and what I thought was, helpful that you showed the millage rates the other day. But the millage rate does not tell the whole story. Tierra Verde's millage rate is 1.5.
Yeah, they're-
But what you don't see
You have it right there.
is the rest of the things that they're paying for. They have a $500,000 for a library service, and then I don't know what MSTU is. I didn't dive into that, but that's 2.0857. So when you look at the net of it, you have to add all those up. And when you compare apples to apples, that's why this shows Tierra Verde is at 4.0857. Clearwater is 6.6. St. Petersburg 7.18. And so, because they all have additional amounts that they're paying for other things, we'll just say, on their tax bill besides general fund, health department, EMS, school and state law, school, local, like we all have those exactly the same across the board. But then there's the way that they've broken it all out in these different municipalities makes it look like they have a low millage rate, which they do, but then they're giving you another assessment here or there. So I
So
think
these
we,
numbers include all that
correct,
extra?
correct, and I can give you a copy of that too, or whatever.
Numbers.
Well, I want to see the city is shining again. Anyways, the last thing was the proposed fee and millage rate changes. My only concern, I just realized, is that this reflects the stormwater rate adjustment, and that didn't happen. Now, it's $2.30, so maybe we don't really care, but I think it's important to recognize that that isn't going to be on there, so this is actually wrong.
We'll
So-
probably communicate that it's just delayed. The
Yep.
$2 is delayed until 2028,
Or do we need to,
because we have a,
or do we need to adopt the 2028 rate?
we
For
can't.
in 2028, we have to do it incrementally? We
We
can,
have to do it after the March election.
no, I just mean,
Or-
it could be more than $2.30 a month kind of a thing, because we skipped a whole cycle of where we would have infused.
I probably wouldn't recommend that,
Okay.
given the,
Anyhow, so
Dimension.
then it's delayed. But this could be useful too for conversations.
Absolutely, yeah.
You all want some of
Yeah.
those. So that's,
Absolutely.
yeah, because I don't know that we are allowed to talk
where are the
outside of this
files?
meeting, so
Well, I
I
was just
just
gonna say,
wanted to share this.
You know,
we
if-
can share these, we shared them with the commission, we can share them with you as well, the files, we have electronic files.
Yeah,
And
Yes, I'd
then,
like to ask
We'll
Jonna.
also have paper files at the hand,
With these?
all of that, yes.
Oh, you will, okay.
okay. I can hand you a few more. then,
And
if you wanna hand
you know,
them
you
out.
guys tell me,
Those and these, or no?
as far as,
They sent it, but can I have this one too? Do you? Is that the
Oh.
only copy you have?
Oh, yeah, I could email it, and then, I did send it to you all after the commission meeting, where I grabbed all the different tax summaries and put what their total, yeah.
Because if somebody's not,
I'll email it to
Educated on
you,
that.
Ginny, or something, and then you can send it
Wonder
out to
where we got the
everybody?
numbers.
Okay. No problem, okay. So, I think that's everything. And was there any other business that we needed?
for the road show, if we see each other there, I think sunshine laws say that we probably shouldn't be huddling up. We should,
we can't.
we should
I-
like,
What are the rules, Ginny, for us to talk in these road shows and be sharing this information as a team or not?
Madam City Clerk, have they all been noticed?
They've all been noticed for the commission because the mayor will be there. I think we could probably produce a notice that other board members and other committee members will be in attendance as well.
Why don't we do that just to be safe? We'll notice it so you're free and clear.
To talk away?
Yes.
With
Oh.
each other and everybody? Okay, great.
oh,
Thank you.
that's
We will-
good.
Yeah, we'll notice it for you.
Because John wants me to talk about why we made a recommendation.
Okay.
So,
No, but we can talk amongst ourselves at these meetings about.
Yes. Once they notice it, that we will be
it-
there.
it-
Once it's noticed, it's a public forum.
Okay,
You're
good.
in the public.
Perfect. That's great.
Yeah, you're
That's
protected.
a nice
because
surprise.
We've told
No, that's
everybody
good.
you're going to be
Yeah.
there.
That's good.
okay.
Okay.
So the next, if we're wrapping this, is the next steps at this point, do we meet again when? Or do we? Until, or not, at this point, it's roadshow two commission meetings, the 9th and the 21st of September. We are not meeting again until the budget has already been finalized. Is that correct?
Potentially. We are actually out to bid right now for new auditors, and it's a it's actually a GASB and Government Finance Officers Association best practice for a board like yourselves to review the proposals we receive. So we will be asking for you all to go through all of the RFP documents that we receive and help us select our next auditor. It's riveting stuff. So that would be the next item. And then, as we did last year, I like to do an after action about what went well in the budget process, what can we do better with you all, and then again with the commission as well, so that we get that feedback and can continuously improve our processes. So that'll be another item. But we can reach out on polling as far as when we could meet again.
And it looks like November 12th is what you had on the calendar at one point.
That one's November. We're going to need the auditors sooner because,
So you'll let us know.
yes.
So there's really no need to meet, no time to meet as a board before you present roadshow results to the commission?
Potentially, because we will be needing you to select auditors before we close out the fiscal year. So,
Why don't we,
I'm just tossing it
I
out there.
would say
I don't-
no,
Okay.
because we have to present this to the commission on September 9th.
That's
So
pretty
I
tight.
think
That's
that's
tight.
just
That's
too
really
much
tight.
for us to
Yeah.
turn that
Can't
quick.
do it. Yeah.
Okay.
September 9th. Yeah.
And my last meeting right now is the 24th. I still have one to schedule, which very likely will be pushing up
Yeah.
against the end of the
Fair
month.
enough.
you said 24th, you meant the 21st?
No,
August 24th.
Oh, sorry.
4th is Pascal.
Okay. Oh, I see what you mean, for the roadshow.
Yeah.
Sorry, my brain was on commission meetings. Okay, so the 9th is your expectations of reporting out the results of the road shows, and then the 21st will be the last public opportunity to talk, and also a decision will be made in that meeting on the final
The final vote.
direction for our millage. Okay. Okay, thank you. I think if there's nothing else, then meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you.